my name is Eva Krolichová. I am a researcher at the Institute of Sociology of the Czech Academy of Sciences. And today at ESC conference in Sarajevo, I have the honor to interview my colleague and mentor, Professor Jiří Burianek, criminologist and lecturer of criminology at Charles University in Prague, Czech Republic. So Jiří, you originally studied sociology, so how did you become criminologist?
It was a long way because I worked at Charles University, Department of Sociology. I gave lectures on methodology and I was engaged a bit in applied research in area of sociology of organization. And I have only one chance to touch the topic of social deviance, let's say. It was during a survey among pupils from vocational training centers affiliated with the power plant company, biggest Czech power plant company. It was focused on mobbing issues or something, but I have had no aspiration to become criminologist. But after Velvet Revolution in 1989, the situation was changed. I became the head of department of sociology. I got my associate professor title. But in 1993, it was a young colleague from Germany, Uwe Ewald, who looked at Prague for a partner to conduct a research on fear of crime in post-communist metropolises. So maybe it was a great luck to meet at Prague, and of course for us it was quite normal situation to conduct a survey, the public opinion survey. So we made an agreement on cooperation, and I start my career practically in this year with this local study in Prague done. It was a representative survey, it was international project. So after that we published some results in some collective monographs and in some separate articles, and it was maybe this turning point in my career. But in this time I was still mostly a sociologist, maybe trying to enter into the field. But consequently, in the mid of 90s, there was an American sociologist, the delegation from Florida State University, headed by Professor Meyer Katkin, but with participation of famous criminologists as Ted Chirikos, Mark Gertz, Professor Blomberg. So we establish some cooperation. We prepare a comparative study on punitiveness, try and compare Florida and Czech Republic. It was a bit crazy idea, but we succeed. I get grant for some Czech part of this project. We published an article on it. It was maybe a good reason to feel a bit more as a criminologist, because I visited Florida, it's Florida school. They invited me at the American Association of Criminology for annual meeting. So it was a really serious interest in criminology, which I met in this period. And maybe also a very important point in my career was my stage at Oxford. It was in 1996. I was accepted by Professor Roger Hood. It's a really excellent, nice man. And he helped me to get a broader orientation in the field, because I felt that this is really a serious situation. I'm obliged to really be familiar with some basic theories, etc. After my coming back, I wrote an article about current criminological theory, and maybe it's really the period when I start my engagement in criminology as a discipline. I felt it's a good challenge, and but still I was a bit alone at my department as a criminologist. And after that, the European Society of Criminology was founded. I became a member, and I started to cultivate the context among European criminologists. We enter into international violence against women survey in 2003. Later we joined to the project ISRD2 in 2007. The first was with my doctoral student Simona Pikálková, second one with Susana Podana, and third wave of ISRD we ran in cooperation mutual. So there was absolutely clear that I'm engaged in this European community of criminologists and started important projects. So it seems to me that that's some typical career. Maybe that's the difference, but in this century there appears there is a chance to work together with small group of doctoral students, and maybe it's also important point to start a cooperation with younger colleagues and to establish real scientific team or research team to working on some common big international projects. So maybe it's a brief recapitulation of my career.
Okay, you mentioned topics such as punitiveness and here at ESC conference you have a presentation on partner violence, and you also mentioned fear of crime. Could you tell us what are your current research topics, or are there any other topics than partner violence you are interested in? If you had to summarize your research topics as well.
Yes, you are right. For today's conference, I prepared a paper on domestic violence or domestic violence perception. It's a part of my interest, but we are in the first year of the granted project of Czech Grant Agency focused on domestic violence. Our intention is to study the couples. You know that it's not so original idea, but it's very difficult to conduct research on real couples. So I would like to test some hypotheses. For example, Marie Strauss offered the hypothesis about this partner violence symmetry. So it maybe would be a good chance to try to bring something new and original on this field. So it's my current topics, but of course I would like to continue a bit in the second stream of my recent work. Last year we finished a granted project focused on the topic of release from prison for conditional release evaluation with simple kind of risk assessment studies. It was rather interesting. So just in a couple of days I have to decide to start new project also on this field, because it's interesting and it's practically challenging how to evaluate impact of this re-socialization processes in prison. So I'm still rather broadly oriented, and of course my former orientation to punitively study or fear of crime study is still a bit in progress.
Okay, and you also talked about this project of ISRD and other projects. So if you could you tell us maybe what you think, what are your achievements in the field of criminology, and maybe challenges for your future research?
Achievements. It's difficult to speak about achievements, but maybe I can start with the most important achievement. It's something represented by you or your younger doctoral or postdoctoral student, in your case, students. I think it's really personal achievement to have a lot of very skilled and talented pupils. So that's achievement number one. Of course, thinking about some organizational level aspects. Of course, the great achievement was a ESC conference at Prague in 2014. So it was a great deal to organize conference because Czech Society of Criminology was very small, low budget society. So it was a great adventure to organize such a huge congress. But yeah, it's also a kind of achievement to be head of this organizational committee. So, of course, I can mention some achievements of the people in area of publications. What is interesting that good citation index is based on these studies done with American colleagues in mid of 90s on punitiveness or some relationship between democratization of the society and fear of crime. It's very good. What is interesting to me, that is attractive for criminologists from South America. Yeah, so maybe it's some common features of the situation. But on the contrary, I can mention our common article with Zuzana Podana focused on alcohol abuse among youngsters, with a multi-level study comparing European countries in the respect of self-control issues. So it's also rather the successful article, I think. In the recent period, I wrote a lot of books as a collective monographs. One is a common monograph on juvenile delinquency as the product of ISRD3 wave. But we also published 2 books in English based on the results of International Violence Against Women survey, and later on the result of our Czech special survey. It was a replication on IAFs 10 years after. So we have data from 2013, and what is interesting that we have a chance to compare the situation among women and men. Maybe it's a topic also rather interesting to European community in the international context, because of course the study of violence against men in intimate partnership is not frequent, and some representative data about any national population are still lacking. So I'm relatively proud to have this data and to get this opportunity to compare the situation among men and women. And I can add that this Czech version of Czech book, monograph on domestic violence against men, became a bestseller at the Faculty of Arts. And I'm proud of it because our Faculty of Arts is a huge faculty, with a lot of authorities in linguistics. It's a famous professor of linguistics. But our book on violence against men was a bestseller in the year 2016, I think. So, but this topic, violence against men, I use also in the case of preparation of the book for honoring or for honor of Martin Kirias, some life jubileum, Martin. So there was a book prepared as a honor for him, and I was proud. Maybe not for the article, but for me it was very prestigious to be implemented in the list of authors and the really biggest authorities in European criminology. So maybe it's my best I did.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, thank you. And You also talked about the problem of democratization and maybe touched the problem of the history of the Czech Republic. So could you please describe the main features of Czech criminology and about maybe how the Czech criminology is formed today?
Yeah, Czech criminology, of course, is flourishing. That is the result of this successful conference in Prague. There is a European Society of Criminology. There is a journal edited by you. Thanks to you. Yeah, it's fine. It's very important in the respect of institutionalization. But on the contrary, we are relatively weak in the studying criminology as a main discipline, as an independent, separated subject. So criminology is cultivated at universities in the form of separate lectures, but we still don't have a program on pure criminology as a discipline. It was a bit crazy. At the mid of 90s, Dan Meyer offered me couple of million crown to establish faculty of criminology by Charles University, but something incredible. So, and 20 years after, we are still working on establishing of PhD study program at university. It's a typical situation in our country. It's not a problem of quality of teachers, but of competencies, because I'm a member of Faculty of Arts. Traditionally in Europe, criminology is cultivated by Faculty of Law. It will be a big problem how to locate this discipline at Charles University. So we will see. It is one of my challenges. Of course, second my challenges is wrote with you this book on fear of crime. But thinking about Czech criminology at universities, the situation is still relatively not weak, but we have simply said some limited opportunities to develop some research groups or some teams or something like that to get some infrastructure support for the research. The result is that at Charles University is a relatively strong group by Faculty of Medicine. It's an addictology clinic, but these colleagues are focused on from very special issues of addicts and prevention and measures, drug. Of course, it's important issues, but relatively separated. And at the university there are some small group at Faculty of Natural Sciences, by geography, at our department of sociology. At other cities, the criminology is not systematically cultivated. So it means that the dominating position still has an Institute of Criminology and Social Prevention. It's a relatively huge institute, very active on this field, a great authority. One weakness is in the fact that it is not purely independent research institute, but it's something as service institution for Ministry of Justice. So they are obliged to fulfill a lot of different applications and practical tasks, and it's not to favor it. To supporting for some long-term oriented research. And the second weakness is a bit the limited capacity for international project and consequently for international publication of their work. But generally said, it's a dominating institute, and it's very. It is very good cooperation with this institute. It's a key organization for contacts with separate researchers cultivating separate topics in my country, I think, because yeah, they have a great tradition, and it is of course an advantage to have a different specialization, because they can conduct research in some interdisciplinary way. So yeah.
Okay.
It's a key institute, simply said.
Okay, thank you. So we talked about the criminology in the Czech Republic, and now maybe if you look at the criminology in Europe, what would be your ideas or opinions about the European criminology, and in general, and also in comparison with maybe criminology in the United States? If you can say your opinions about it.
Yes, I started with this contacts with American colleagues, and this style of criminology is, let's say, familiar to me because I'm a sociologist. I prefer the empirical research or data analysis. So it seems to me it's a good tradition. But of course, American criminology seems to me a bit restrictive in the respect of theoretical approaches. Usually, the criminologists select one theory or one paradigm, and yes, it's fine that they conduct research according to this paradigm and offer good evidence-based results. Of course, that there is also a plurality of theories, but usually everybody keep his own line, or maybe bowling alone. But in Europe, it seems to me that the approach is more flexible. It's a good example of our ISRD3 group. There are some theories behind, without the dominance of one theory, and different researchers can use different aspects of data for different purposes, for different analysis. So it seems to me that maybe traditionally European thinking is more complex, maybe more dialectical in the sense of comparison, different views and alternatives of thinking. Maybe it's also done on some historical perspective of Czech or other European nations with some ideological, theoretical changes, or some waves of preference, of positivism or some constructivism, and with some different philosophical or epistemological inspiration. So maybe Europe, in this respect, looks as a kind of melting pot of different ideas, approaches. Sometimes, of course, it can be disadvantage for the scientific work, but generally, it's not bad situation. Maybe I can say I like it, but you know me as well as a researcher.
Yeah, and maybe could you evaluate the role of European Society of Criminology in European criminology?
Yes, of course, it's enormous. I mentioned it, that was so important time when I entered into this context as maybe one of founding members, because I attended the first conference at Lausanne. It was an amazing experience with some cooperation, and the result I mentioned here, this networking started with IWEFs and ISRD3 later, and other project as a Prevent. So it's a very important role, but not in the respect, only in the respect of my personal career or of promotion of Czech criminology. I think it's a very, very important place for meeting with colleagues from neighborhood countries, because it's one of paradoxes is that we in the past we had some contacts with top criminologists from Western Europe or from United States, but we never meet critics, colleagues from Slovakia, from Hungary, from Poland. So I think it's very important to enlarge the knowledge or to scope of European criminology on these countries, also Central European countries, Eastern European countries. That's a great deal of European Society of Criminology to support criminology in these countries. It's still continuing challenge for this society. It's not easy to attract people. I know it during the period when we organized the Prague conference to look for some key speakers for plenaries, to authorities from Central Eastern Europe. Of course, it's a difficult task, and maybe more important task is to disseminate the criminological knowledge. It's a similar situation as in Czech Republic. We have Institute of Criminology, we have small groups of criminologists at university, and let's say good quality of results, able or capable to cooperate on international projects. But the problem is how to disseminate this knowledge on some regional universities. And similar model we can use for explanation what is challenging for Europe or European Society of Criminology. Because it seems to me it's also a task to enlarge the scope of knowledge, of research capacities, of methodological skills to this part of Europe, to Central Eastern Europe, let's say in the respect of criminology into these developing countries. And yeah, it's important because sometimes the quality of comparative research is relatively weak. It's difficult to establish thorough contacts with colleagues for us, for example, from Slovakia, to be prepared for high quality international research or comparative studies. So it's a great task for European Society of Criminology, maybe for the future, for the next year. But of course, I think it's only this actor is able to do something on this field. I think it's very important issue for the European Society of Criminology. One of challenges, because of course sometimes you can observe the situation that there are some prominent researchers from Central Eastern Europe, but usually they have in career two points. One stage at Max Planck Institute in Freiburg and stage or contacts with Cambridge Institute. Yeah, it's fine, but these two channels are really have only limited capacity how to promote new generation of criminology from all Europe. So maybe one task for the society or for European criminology is to open this channel for the natural mobility of talented researcher for whole Europe. So it seems it's a really challenging issue. I still think about the next generation.
You maybe already touched the last topic or question I wanted to pose to you. To close the interview, I wanted to ask you how would you like to see the future maybe of the Czech criminology, of European criminology? What would you wish? What are your wishes for the criminology in Europe?
I'm optimistic. My experience also as a member of this board of European Society is very positive, and there is a really great effort to promote the criminology in all areas, to support any topics we observe of very positive changes, and in our teams, in our colleagues from from this, let's say, Eastern Europe, yeah, the quality is getting higher and higher. So there's no reason to have any doubts or pessimistic scenarios on the future of criminology in Europe. But the same situation in Czech Republic, that the society is also flourishing, a good number of members and regular conferences. So no reason to
be worried about the criminology.
To be worried about criminology. And I think it's very important because the Europe still is placed in relatively good times with good conditions for cooperation, and I'm still thinking about the possibility that the times are changing as now, and maybe Europe could be confronted with a situation that some bad times appear. And I feel that it's very important to have some intellectual platforms for cooperation, for sharing some common values, common ideas. I think it's also a function of this European Society of Criminology to offer such a platform. And maybe it's an unimportant issue, but hopefully it's an important issue. But in the case of something could change, so it will be very important function or task for European Society of Criminology for the future. So I hope the society or we will succeed on this field.
Okay, so thank you very much for the interview and enjoy Sarajevo.
It was my great pleasure.